We got our first real taste of a spring scrimmage on Saturday, and are we watching a defense that could carry this team early? Let's talk about it.
If you're interested in being great, you better look hard into Washington State. You want to be great? Go to Washington State, baby.
It's a Sunday morning special here at the Palouse Playbook. Welcome on in, Washington Cougars podcast, and we got the full gang to talk about the first taste of a spring scrimmage for Kirby Moore in WSU for his first year in the program. Everybody's here. Chad, Gavin, Kyle, and the good old everybody's fan favorite. We saw the comments, folks. We had to bring him in. We had to maybe throw him a couple bucks on the side. No, we're just kidding. Joe Welton, welcome back in.
Twitterless Joe.
So good. Twitterless Joe. So happy to have you back in the show and talk. And this is going to be a really fun episode because it's defensive heavy. And I know this is your specialty. I'm so glad that we get talking. That's why I don't want to wait 10 minutes like we waited last time. I want to get it right to you right off the bat. We got our first taste of spring scrimmage on Saturday. Kirby Moore talked with the folks after. We didn't get any videos or anything like that. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But what we heard and what we've read, a couple other people have reported some things, that the defensive line, the entire defense was dominant in the performance and really setting the tone in this scrimmage. What did you take away from this?
Man, 1,000 times yes. It was just, it's just so glorious. Everyone had the same thing that they were saying, like, oh, our defense is formidable. And the very first group that they would talk about, the defensive line. This big boys make noise, as Gavin knows I like to say. Yeah, it was. It's just exciting I could just imagine, the types of plays that are happening. I know we're all collectively going to go into detail, but just hearing right out the gate, when they were full contact, all the D linemen that were, in the backfield making plays. They had, Mateus McLean, Ben Betty getting back in the mix, Caden Betty, P3, aka Paul Hudson III, Michael Hughes, and Linus. They were all making plays, right out the gate. That hour focus. I know defense all around, but man, just everyone's yeah, the D line is a terror. So I enjoy it. I enjoy just any detail that we can see about that D line just producing as we all hoped. It's happening now, boys. It's happening. It's real.
Kyle, this has been one of your favorite topics all off season that I'd like to hear from you. You've talked about how Kirby Moore in year one of the biggest things that you have to attack is the offensive line. On the flip side, that's still the trenches, the defensive line. Sounds like with this type of dominance, you also got that produced as well. What are you taking from this? Because I know you love talking about these trenches too.
Yeah, I mean, it's slam dunk. When the fact that you've got guys like DJ Warner who have been naturally a defensive end moving back to more of a coverage linebacker tells you that they've got so many guys, but there's only so many few spots, right? They're trying to figure out how do we get our best athletes on the field at one time. And so while I think DJ will still be a guy that puts a hand down, I think the ability for him to go into coverage as a stand-up guy, you think about the 4-2-5 when they came out today and said, could you potentially see that being could you roll somebody up? It's more of a 6-2 look or a 5-3 look. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that they can do with that defense, and they have the guys to be able to kind of cater to what they need and cater to the teams they're playing. It's not one of those crap. This is what we have to be able to be good at and hope that the other team doesn't succeed. We can actually adapt to teams because of the depth that Kirby Moore and the staff put together with the focus of, you got to get the trenches set. The trenches don't work. And this is at the NFL level too. You look at the Seahawks this year, their defensive line was studs. And you think about when they won it in 2013, they had studs. It's a recipe for success, and it passes time. From the offensive side, and I will say this just in totality, offenses take longer to kind of install and perfect. So I'm not shocked the defense rolled today and beat up on the offense, because it takes, especially a new regime, it's going to be quicker for not to say that defenses don't have, a bunch of intricate things it's easier for them to install and pick it up. Where from the offense, there's so many things that make an offense when they're good work, but it takes time.
Great with segues, terrible with soda taste, Kyle, as always. But I'm going to throw it over to you, Chad, because Washington State hasn't always been consistent with controlling the line of scrimmage over the recent years with all different coaching changes. But if this holds, if this is legit, if this isn't just something that we're hearing in, the first scrimmage of the season, this makes life easier on the secondary. I mean, this covers up offensive growing pains. And that's what I wanted to get to with the growing pains and what Kyle said with segues about the offense having a slower transition. Is this a legit strength with this defense, or is this just the spring offense is behind effect? Where is your thought process?
I think is the deepest I've seen this defense, especially in the front seven. I think it could be really dangerous for us. I feel like last year, I know we talked a little bit about it on the last episode, but I felt like we were just a little bit thin. I feel like we had a lot of dudes who just couldn't get them all on the field at the same exact time. It was just kind of frustrating to see. I feel like we have like one more layer of level of players that are really strong, younger too. I look at this team and I see in one thing that's been called out is Linus Zunk. And I know Matthias McLean, we've talked about it a few times. I feel like it's going to be, I feel like those two guys just together are going to be like, just disruptors from both sides. And it's going to be like the Bash brothers in some kind of way, right? I feel like it's going to be kind of fun to see that kind of develop, like how it's going to be that 1-2 punch from the edge. And I know from Coach Bray's defense in the past, I know we're talking about the 4-2-5 a little bit in ways. And I know in his past defenses, at least when he was head coach, he was running with a little bit more of a Leo type, a 6'4", 230-pound type. So I don't know really if we are we going to see maybe Linus or Matthias, are they going to be maybe their hands off the ground a little bit, running from just the sprint position on the outside? I'd love to see that. Joel, it's going to be something for us to watch. I know we're going to be talking about it a little bit, Christian. I just want to see it on camera. It's just tough being a 4.5-hour drive away. Is making me want to drive out there for this spring game in a week.
Yeah.
I got to see it. I got to see it. And then this secondary, and it's nice hearing about Jay-Sean, hearing that name a second time in a row, starting to see another, I believe he came from Arizona, right? I think he was an Arizona transfer. So I really wanted to hear more safeties. I want to start hearing our secondary, because I know we brought in a lot of names, a lot of really great talents, 3 stars, 4 stars. And so it's nice to start hearing those names showing up from the coaches too after the practice.
Gavin, I know you have some more things to talk about with this defense dominance, but one thing I want to add to your side here and then ask a question is, what would you like to see as something that we've seen last year, obviously with some of the defensive woes when there was ups and downs? I know there was a few blowout games in there as well, but what would you rather see, and what would you rather think is more important for the defense in year one under Kirby Moore and Trent Bray? A better pass rush or a better run stopping defense?
Yeah, just seeing last year, I'd like to see a better pass rush, just because that's what we were not used to seeing as good. We did have a couple guys on the team. By no means am I belittling them, but I actually wanted to give my talking segment over to Joel on this one, because Joel and I were talking the other day about when you have this many good, solid defensive linemen and rotationally putting them through. Joel, what was you were telling me that you like to see something when you're having rotations? What's the difference, and how are you going to disrupt this offensive lineman? By the way, Joel is a former All-American at Charleston Southern. He knows what he's talking about. Joel, take it away. I want to know what we were talking about the other day.
I appreciate the flowers, by the way, Gavin. You're too kind. But yeah, no, when we were discussing, I went on my 50,000 tangents. You probably asked me something totally different. I went into this. What I was sharing is that, you would ask the question generally like, hey, do you think that we're going to be doing high rotation? Or do you think it's better to have it be more consistent with hey, here's our 4 mains, and then as needed situationally? And I said, with the defensive line that we have, it's honestly better to have the high rotation, because there's so many different types of D linemen that we have, and the offensive linemen have already hinted to it. Sonny Lester was interviewed earlier this week when asked hey, who's your standout? And he talked about who his standout was, but what you hope for when you have so many different body types, you have, those bigger guys like Jaira, and then you have this, speedsters in terms of D tackles like P3, like Paul Hudson. You want to see a mix between those that can grab you and shove back and those that are going to be able to do those speed moves, right? Because you're going to overload those offensive linemen. You're going to give them decision fatigue, right? Mentally, they're going to get exhausted, because naturally offensive linemen, I would say personally, they're not getting as many steps in as defensive linemen, so they might not be physically as tired, but you want them to be overthinking, right? So with the D-line that we have, the fact that we had so many people in the backfield, it alludes to the fact that we are doing high rotation. That's what's happening, and it's messing people up. Like, you might think, okay, against this defensive lineman, I got to be aggressive and do first step forward, to try and meet that speed. Then you get another guy and he goes to do that and you get swim moves, or you get plowed backwards, right into the pocket. So it's a perfect setup that we have now. And that's why folks that are going to be surprising, I think, will be big playmakers like, I'm saying check the pH levels, P3, aka
Check
Paul
the
has
pH levels. Let's
check
go.
those pH levels. I think he's going to be a terror. I mean, the things that he's done, with Marshall, it's going to shine through. The fact that as a D tackle, he had 2 interceptions. We're going to see it not only in the backfield, but I think when it comes to rallying to the ball. So yeah, I would say with the D line that we have now, it's going to make our offensive line better. But it's even when Kirby Voorhees was interviewed, that was one of the things that he brought up instantly. He's like, this D line is going to be. It's going to be something else. He even said, I enjoy us having this defense. He's like, it's a note to hey, it's better watch out for the future teams. It's going to be a fun time for all of us.
Having a solid defensive line makes everything better, not just the offensive line, not just the running backs working it, but obviously it makes it easier for the linebackers and the safety and the safeties, the corners, whatever. And we're hearing about it in interviews. We're reading about it. Greg Woods put out something really nice in the Sportsman Review talking about the spring practice. He was at the scrimmage, and we're hearing that the linebackers and the safeties are doing a really good job. They're getting involvement very early, and they're hitting and they're making plays. And if safeties are making plays on the ball, and you're hearing that already, what screams to me when I hear that is you're focused on potentially getting turnovers early, and that is making me excited for what this new Pac-12 conference is going to look like for Washington State early in this matchup. And maybe even we should start talking about how it's going to look like in the Apple Cup in week 1, because I feel like there's a really strong point, if this defense continues to shine, that they could shock the system and maybe get a, dare I say, a Big Ten win under their belt in Seattle week 1. That could be really interesting for sure. One thing is concerning, though, and I think we got to get to that, is when we heard about it, there's still a little bit of concern when it comes to the quarterbacks. QB1 still seems to be up in the air. Again, it's first spring practice. We shouldn't be too concerned, but it sounds like no one is really standing out yet. Speaking of what Greg Woods said from the Spokesman Review, he said, quote, all 3 turned in somewhat uneven showings. On multiple occasions, you saw Pinnock doing certain things, Eshelman doing and Duggar doing other things, but they weren't certainly standing out. Kyle, I'm going to throw it to you first. Does this make you nervous? What is your thoughts on all of this?
No, it doesn't. Again, it comes back to kind of my comment earlier about getting the offense installed, and so you're going to make a lot of mistakes early. I mean, there's just so much going on. You're trying to look at reads. You're trying to understand, okay, how am I going to feel on this read when I turn here? How am I going to see? You can conceptualize it, but it's when you finally get the game rep, it's a lot different. I mean, you're moving at 1,000 miles an hour. So I think these mistakes, again, especially early on, you're seeing a guy wide open and you overthrow him. You get the big bug eyes, like, oh my God, touchdown. I can already see I can already be thinking about my celebration. That's what they're going through. They're getting these things out right now. So when they get into the game, it's ice in the veins and it just happens. But beyond that, I mean, Greg Woods, again, great article, talked about, I mean, our stable of receivers that we brought in, a lot of them are hurt. So again, you've got 3 guys you're throwing to. I think they talked about was Hawkins, I think Daniel Blood, and
Brian McKendry.
I'm saying he's hurt. Like the only guys I think that are healthy right now is I think it was Daniel
yeah.
Blood, it's Ganashamurthy, and I think it was Hawkins. Or 3 of the real big guys that are healthy. You got Jack Peterson, who's having a great camp. I mean, every article seems to be talking about him when it's offensive, offensive topics. So right now there's a lot of guys missing. And so as a defense, you kind of know, okay, I know who they're probably thinking about. and it makes it a little easier to, to react to. But for the quarterbacks, I mean, based on just, again, like as Chad mentioned, we don't get to see the film. We're not watching it, which is, kind of gets you really jittery. But based on what he was saying, I would say that, no one made up ground or separated themselves. So if you want to think about what we've kind of walked into as like, okay, what's our depth chart? If you said today, it's probably Caden, Owen, and Julian. And no one has separated them or moved ground. So I think you come back to that as like, that's where it stands today. Again, a lot can change. This was one scrimmage, but ultimately I'm not concerned about the quarterbacks right now. Cause again, there's just a lot that they're trying to install, brand new coordinators and head coach and everything from the offensive side. And receivers are hurt, right? So it'll be curious to see here come the Crimson and Gray game. They've got film now, live game scenarios. How do they adjust into that game? And I think that'll be the kind of the big decider of, okay, do we kind of concern ourselves with what's going on, or hey, it was just them learning?
Yeah, Kirby Moore doesn't seem too worried about it either. And look, I think this is the perfect time to make these mistakes in practice because that's how you get better. Iron sharpens iron, right? When it comes to Kirby Moore, and talk about this quarterback, he again didn't want to tip his hand. He kept the cards close to his chest like he normally is doing. But he said this, Chad, he said, quote, "I think the quarterback presents itself when it does. Sometimes that's in spring ball. Sometimes that's in fall camp. You get in playing situations, you get in the red zone, you get in 2-minute drills, and someone continues to show up through a number of consistent consecutive days. And then you say, hey, that's your quarterback. So are you concerned, or are you thinking that this is just going to play the long game and we have faith and trust in Kirby Moore?
No, I feel like when you're talking about spring ball, and I'm just thinking about just from my experience, just being a former equipment manager, Leach bringing in a new coach, just different position coaches, just trying to install like their, I guess, really their philosophy as far as like their position goes. So is there a lot more of like, I feel like position group type stuff. And then, yeah, they do break out and they do their plays. And I feel like we've talked about it. Like defense definitely has the edge here. Defense can just kind of go quick, and it's like they'd rather just say whoa than giddy up, right? And they just rather see guys just make mistakes, go quick, because that's how defense goes. Where I feel like offense is a lot more of like timing, rhythm, especially from an offensive line position. Like when I was there as an equipment guy, like I started in the O-line and just seeing like Leach, he did spacing, like obviously air raid a little bit different. Like and it's a lot of timing, and it's a lot of like, you got to make sure you're calling out your assignments. There's a lot of communication involved too. So obviously we're not getting any kind of televised experience here as fans, unless we're there in Pullman, which would be awesome today. I bet from a defensive standpoint, it sounded awesome, but offensively, I'm sure it's just a timing thing. They probably were focusing on their flaws more than their strengths. I would hope, right? They're trying to find like, who are the dudes that are going to step up in those situations? Because that's more what he wants to see that, right? Gav, you talked about it, right? You want to see like adversity, like how do the guys step up? So I feel like we heard a lot of the good things that were kind of coming, or what we wanted to hear. And I like what you said, Christian, though. Like, you're right. Like the guys, they'll make the decision for us. Like they'll start making in the red zone, they'll start completing those passes, right? They'll start getting those touchdowns in the red zone. It'll start kind of just the whole team starts just seeing it. It's just everybody that's been on a team, right? Like you're looking for that top of the rotation guy. You're looking for that QB1, whatever we're going to call it, that center back, like kind of just develops itself.
Right. I got a really fun one for everyone for everybody who listens to the ending of this episode. So stick around. Gavin, your takeaway from this quarterback battle first, and you get a second. And then I'd like you to start on the next segment. Any other breakaway players or any other ones that stood out that we haven't got to yet?
Yeah. And Nosey, I apologize. When you were running through that list, for some reason, I thought you were saying who was out injured. And that's why I said Ryan McHenry. My apologies. Yeah, this quarterback battle, like we had talked about in one of our previous episodes, I want to see adversity. And what better way to go about this than this defense that is being constructed right now? There's a mountain to climb. There's no doubt about it. There's a mountain to climb with the defense that you're going up against, and also a brand new offense that you're trying to install with new players and some former players. There's a lot of moving pieces that are trying to be attacked right now. And this is the time. You're gonna learn a lot more from these losses as an offense. And I say losses because I wasn't there. I don't know exactly how it goes. It just sounds like it didn't go as well as maybe they wanted it to go. I'm hoping that this is perfect learning moments, and this is what they need.
Though I feel like that's the thing. It's like the time, like you're going from those position groups. You're going from just like the ones versus twos versus ones. Now you're getting ones versus ones.
Now you're getting ones versus ones.
It just speeds up a lot faster.
And this is
timing for the QB, the timing for the receivers. All of a sudden is a step difference, 2-step difference, and that's where the overthrown balls kind of happen.
This is what they need. And I'm glad they're introducing this early. We're seeing it in the spring. So by the time that everybody steps foot on campus this summer, and when we're preparing for our cross-state rival, which I don't know if they view us like that. We've heard all their stories about, oh, we're bigger than you, we're Big Ten. Hey, man, you're still our cross-state rival. We got you game 1 this year. Getting ready for that game, I think the boys are absolutely getting after it right now. You can kind of see it getting after it on defense and bleeding into the offense. There's something to be said about what this offense is seeing. And I wanted to give, getting into the next part of this, I want to give a shout out to Julian Duggar. He did have one pick that was talked about, but he also came back and hit a bomb to Jack Peterson. Jack Peterson was the other guy I was going to give a shout out to. I think we could see between the tight end core, I think we could see them being introduced or just at least being touched on as we get into the red zone more often than we've seen in years past. So Jack Peterson could be one of those guys that really highlights this offense, plus our running back group, plus everything that we have in the backfield, wide receivers, all the good stuff. And yeah, I still go back to my what I had said about Julian Duggar a couple weeks ago. I think that there's a role for him on this team. He may not be the starting quarterback as it plays out right now, but I think he has a role. I think there's ways that you can implement him in certain offenses that it works, and he's going to be a Swiss Army knife in some other capacities, and he can still pass the ball. Like, there's a lot to like about Julian Duggar.
That Mateer role would be really close.
Yes,
that Mateer role that he had.
Yeah, I am so stoked for tight end play with Washington State under Kirby Moore this year. If you go back to last year in Mizzou's offense, 15 passing touchdowns, they had 7 of them were to tight ends, including the team leader in Northfleet that had 5. Those were tight end plays. So they focus on tight end work, and I really do think that's going to be a really big thing to pay attention to with the Cougs this season. Any other breakout players that we want to discuss that we haven't yet? Joel, do you have any? And then we can go around the room before we finish this off.
Sure. I mean, DJ Warner, we talked about it a little bit before. Like you were saying, Kyle, he got that chance to step up. I mean, from the sounds of it in an article, I mean, it sounds like he might step up to be part of the number 1 core, at that second spot of linebacker. And you talked about this before, Gav. Tank Hawkins from Florida. He actually had some, it looks like he got some shout out as well. Owen connected with him for a deep pass. So, I mean, there's positives on the offensive side. But like you said, Chad, it's the continuity. They're figuring things out. And I hesitate to say this, but I'll be honest, please, any D linemen, whether parents or players, you see this, I'm sorry. It is easier. I'm saying easier to get sacks during scrimmages and even spring ball, just naturally because of the process. And I'm sure you guys are aware, when a D lineman gets through, you can hit running backs, you can hit tight ends, you cannot hit the quarterback. And what that means is on this, to verify a sack, you are running up underneath them, past them, and tap them on the back. But sometimes there's some schools that will be like, oh, 2-hand touch. The worry is if the quarterback goes up, you tap them a certain way, you can mess the arm up. We don't want to do that. But yeah, so it is a lot easier versus having to break down and get someone. It's like an extra, I say, half a second or so to complete a sack versus just a run tap. So no offense to us D linemen, but yeah, it is a little easier.
Kyle, any breakout players we missing that we need to discuss?
I think it's hard just not being there to see kind of what else is going on, because they've brought up a lot of, like, Bo Phillips had a really good run or a really good play. They talk about the Tank Hawkins, Jack. I would say Jack Peterson's probably been the most, in terms of when you, again, reading articles, kind of listening, you hear his name a lot. And I would say that this is a guy that's, in terms of everything going on, it's probably him, and then it's Ganashamurthy are probably the two guys that I hear about more and more when it's like, hey, a big play down the field, or even when it's a defensive, like when this guy got an interception while guarding him. Like it's like, okay, I hear these names more and more. And Joel's exactly right when you talk about. I think to me, spacing is the biggest thing that's different between practice and scrimmage. You talk about trying to run a route when you're just in the back corner of the stadium, right? You're not doing it in space. You figure out, okay, now I'm throwing a route to the number. Okay, my guys, how's he playing? How's the corner playing, or how's the safety playing? There's a lot of things that your kind of depth perception changes. I'm not just throwing in a corner here now. Now I'm throwing on a field, the numbers. So I think it's a feel thing right now. And for the quarterbacks, I think that it's just getting that feel on the field with where guys are playing. And I think you'll start hearing more about more competitive scrimmages as the season goes on. But I just want to touch on that. But yeah, I think the two guys I would say that are breakouts, just based on what we're seeing social media wise, article wise, would be Peterson and Ganashamurthy. And if I'm butchering that, I am so sorry.
And I'm glad that you brought that up. The fact that we can't really see anything right now, right? They put out like a directive before that they're not going to have any media for the scrimmage. They're keeping it close, keeping everything close to the chest, like Kirby Moore has done. It's kind of interesting that they're doing that. And they're not the only program that does that. There's been a lot of actual spring games that happen on Saturday across all the conferences inside the power conferences as well. SEC had a bunch, Alabama, Tennessee, Colorado, and some of those weren't even televised on Saturday for the actual spring game, the thing that's going to happen on the 25th for Washington State. But I find it interesting that they are keeping the media away from these set scrimmages. One, because they're still installing things, but you have multiple new conference members, Chad, in the conference that have never seen this. And of course, even Oregon State doesn't know what a Kirby Moore offense is going to look like. And it's a brand new coaching scheme as well, but you're entering brand new territory. You don't want to show your hand, and you don't want to show your hand against the Huskies either.
Well, and I'm also curious too. I mean, we want to be a brand of entertainment a little bit, and we want to get fans excited. So I'm hopeful that, since fans can't see what, can't get the cameras on practice, right? So hopefully fans go down to Pullman for this next scrimmage. And I think that'd be awesome to get more and more people to go to that. I think the fact that they hit the Tri-Cities, they hit also Spokane. I think that's awesome that they committed to those communities. So yeah, not having the ability to watch it is tough, but as fans, at least I feel like at least our media members are doing a great job reporting back to what they can report back. It's just tough. It's just spring ball, Joel, it's just, there's what's really to report. There's a lot of and I feel like it goes back to what roles can really be won in camp. I think there's guys that are moved up and down the depth chart. I feel like coaches can get an eye on really how guys are really gelling in the locker room, one, and two, how are they starting to line up as far as playing time. But I don't think the 1, 2s, and 3s are fully decided yet, though. It's going to be quite some time, but yeah, man.
Appreciate everybody listening in here. If you have stuck around to the end, this is for you. Let's have a little bit of fun to end this episode. I'm going to go around the room, and you can keep it quick. You can keep it brief if you want to. We're already running through nice time. I think this is one of our longest episodes we've had this spring, which is great. It's because we got our good buddy Joel on here. That's why we had to make sure, give all the fans what they're looking for. Here's my question. Gavin, we'll start with you, then we'll just go clockwise around the room. You guys can just fall in right after. I won't direct you guys, so we can just get to it. If the defense is truly this good, how good does the offense need to be for Washington State to win 8 or more games in Kirby Moore's first year? Gavin, go ahead.
Average.
Ooh.
Average,
Okay.
but I have a feeling that this defense is going to push them to be good. They have a lot of pieces. Let me rephrase that by saying I don't think this offense is average, but that's how good they would need to be to win 8+ games. I think this defense is truly that good. But yeah, I think the offense is going to be very good as well.
Yeah. If we're going this way, I would say, I couldn't agree more, Gavin. I would say we need the offense to regularly put up at least 2 touchdowns a game the way this defense looks. If it works out the way I think it's going to work out, I don't want it to be low scoring. I mean, I want our offense to be prolific and put some points on the board. But I think to confidently win out on conference, they got to be able to put up a minimum 2 touchdowns a game. I think we will be solid. I think we already put a lot of goose eggs up next year, this coming season.
I think for me, I love the fact that we're putting a ton of emphasis in the red zone. So it gives me, I feel comfortable going into the season. What I really want to see too, and I feel like to get to a 10-win team for us, obviously we're going to have a really good running game. How can we stretch the field? Tank Hawkins, how is Tony Freeman, a guy that talking about a breakout guy, the breakout guy for this team last year when it comes from an offensive standpoint. I feel like from our receiver position too. So I want to see how we can stretch the field. How do we do it from a QB position and develop that and continue to do that? That's the big question, right?
Kyle, are you frozen like Joel from last week?
For a second, I thought it was.
I'm not. I think I would say if we can score at least 21 a game, we should be fine.
21.
And just 21. I think you look at, because again, if the defense has a rough quarter, rough half, I think where Joel's at is right, but I think it's also trying to kind of compensate for not everyone comes in, someone has a fight with a girlfriend or has a fight with the parents. You just got to kind of, compensate for that. So to me, that's where the extra touchdown comes in. So I'd say if they're getting 21 or more a game, I think we're in a good position.
Barring the quarterback situation, because I still want to learn more about that. So hold me to that portion right there. My answer is no second half meltdowns. How many times did that happen last year? If that doesn't happen this year, this team is easily an 8+ win team in Kirby Moore's first year. Because I believe this roster is better than they did have last year. With maybe potentially, like I said, the questions still rely on the quarterback play because we just haven't seen it in real gameplay with the exception of Caden. But that was an FCS. It is a different ball game. Although we did see the transition for 75+ players last year make that jump from FCS to Pac-12 ball, and it worked out just fine. So as long as there's no second half meltdowns, I feel very, very good about 8+ wins with Washington State. Look at me. I got the last word on this podcast. Ha ha. Thanks everyone for listening in to the Palouse Playbook Podcast, a Washington State Cougars podcast. We'll see you back here next time. We got more to talk about. We got more practices this week. We are 2 weeks out from the actual spring game. And then we start digging in deep. Player profiles. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up for you with all this Washington State Cougar stuff. So if you haven't been subscribed, stay subscribed, do all that good stuff. Like, comment, join the conversation because we are here to talk Cougs all the time. We'll see you back here next time.